All right, Hawkins v. McGee. This is the first case you'll encounter in your Hollywood adaptation of law school. It's also the first case you'll probably encounter in contracts in real law school. An important issue in contracts is how much damages to award the winning party. There's really three ways to calculate damages. The first is reliance, which is to basically get me, the good guy, back to where I started before the agreement was made. So let's say I run a tie-dye shirt making business out the back of my van, and you say you're going to buy 100 of those shirts, but that I got to drive to Wisconsin to drop them off. So I drive to Wisconsin, and that costs like $50 of van gas. I get there. You're like, hey, actually, you know what? Tie-dye shirts have been dumb for 40 years. I'm not going to buy them. Well, guess what? I could sue you for reliance damages and at least get the money back I spent in like gas in reliance on that contract. The second type of damages is kind of the opposite. It's restitution damages, which is to get the bad guy back to where they were before the contract was started. So I run a giraffe petting zoo out the back of my van. You pay the $10 cover charge to pet my giraffes, and then you walk into the back of the van, and lo and behold, there's no giraffes. You could sue me, and then we're getting me, the bad guy, back to where I was before this agreement, so I'd owe you $10. This brings us to the third and most important damages calculation to contracts, which is also what Boom Hawkins v. McGee introduces. That's expectation damages. So Hawkins v. McGee. Hawkins was like a little kid, curious kid, lived with his parents still. He was a kid, and he got burned with an electrical wire on a lamp that was defective. They get approached by the defendant, McGee, who is a doctor who's fascinated by like skin grafting and all that kind of stuff. And he promises, now this is important, he promises that he's going to get the kid a 100% good hand. So anyway, the kid goes into surgery. Literally, he takes skin off the kid's chest and grafts it onto the kid's hand. And then weeks later, the kid's got this really hairy hand. When you first learn this case, it's kind of like, oh, what's the big deal? I think you got to really understand this. This is a really hairy hand. So anyway, they sue the doctor for basically breaching his promise of a 100% good hand. The low court agrees, awards the kid a bunch of money, but a big part of that is they also awarded the kid pain and suffering damages. So anyway, it gets appealed, and the Supreme Court of New Hampshire really follows the classic example of expectation damages. They say, yeah, you know what? Sorry, kid. The lower court gave you too much money. Under expectation damages, what you're entitled to is really the difference in what the contract promised you, which was a 100% good hand, and what you ended up with, which was gorilla hand. So you're not entitled to pain and suffering from the surgery because you were going to suffer in that surgery even if you had this perfect hand there, sporto. So yeah, expectation damages is a calculation to get the person who did not breach the contract to where they would have been had the promise been fulfilled that the contract had promised. So let's put that into a real world example. So I drive rigs, and at the county fair coming up next month, I've got a jump over the lake of fire, and I want to hire your body shop to chrome out my rig before that launch. I hire you to chrome out my rig. You tell me it's going to cost $1 million. So I know at the end of this, I'm going to be out $1 million. I'm going to have a fully chromed out rig. You then later, after we make this contract, just tell me you can't do it. I say, okay, well, the launch is just a week away. So then I got to go to Big Jerry's Chrome Nation, where the yuppies get their rigs chromed out. And he says it's going to cost $2 million because he only has a short amount of time. So, I expected to have a fully chromed rig for $1 million. You broke your promise. Now it costs me $2 million. So I get the difference in damages to get me to where I should have been, which was fully chromed out rig, out $1 million, I'm out $2 million, you owe me $1 million, all right? Expectation damages, $1 million. The only other sort of contract damages, and it's not technically damages, is specific performance, which is where the court will tell you, hey, listen, you promised to chrome out that rig, you have to chrome out that rig. You have to do the specific thing you promised. It's really unlikely that's going to ever happen because we're already at the point of throwing fisticuffs and the relationship's spoiled. So, what have we learned? Don't let your kids play with defective lamp wires.